Right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the August 1st, 2024 meeting of the West Sacramento Planning Commission. For the respect of everyone in attendance, please make sure your cell phones are silenced or turned off before we begin. All right. Commissioner Squires, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. All right. Coming forward to item number 1 on the agenda, are there any presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda this evening?
Yes, there are.
Okay. And a reminder, please keep your comments to 3 minutes, and please be respectful of everyone in the room. Thank you.
I'd like to call Angela Adams, please.
Right to it, huh? Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm going to speak a little bit about area labor standards for NorCal. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Angela Adams, and I would like to reflect on the critical importance of area labor standards. These standards are not just rules and regulations. They are the foundation of a decent and dignified life for many hardworking individuals in construction. I would like to share a story that underlines the value of area labor standards, a story that reflects the lives of countless workers who work day in and day out to ensure their families' well-being. For the past 16 years, I have been working in drywall lath and metal framing in a field demanding not only physical strength, but also mental resilience. The challenge has been many long hours and physical tasking tasks, and the constant pressure to deliver perfection in every job. Despite the hardship, I have been able to make a living, and this has been possible because of NorCal's core values. These standards ensure fair wages, apprenticeship programs, local hiring, and most importantly, access to good health care. These standards have been vital in allowing me to not only survive, but thrive. They have enabled me to take care of my mother, providing her with the support and attention she deserves in her later years. Imagine a world where such standards do not exist, where workers are left to fend for themselves, struggling to balance the demand of their jobs with the need of their families. It is a terrifying vision, one that we must strive to prevent. Area labor standards are not just protection measures, they are the lifeline that sustains the dignity, health, and stability of workers and their families. Let us continue to advocate for the strong labor standards, recognizing the vital role that it plays in our lives. Let us honor the hardworking individuals in construction, ensuring they have the rights to equal fairness and the protection they deserve. I ask the Planning Commission to recognize and uphold area labor standards to ensure a brighter future for the next diverse generation of skilled workers, where everyone has the opportunity to work with dignity, live healthy, and care for their loved ones without unjustified hardship. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any additional public comment?
Yes, Alexander Hampton, please.
Good evening. Yes, my name is Alexander Hampton. I'm a field representative for the NorCal Carpenters, Local 46. And thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My main concern here is the worries about the hard-working men and women who are out there in the construction industry. Every day I go to these job sites, and as a former carpenter, I see a lot of these workers getting used, getting underpaid, lacking health care for the same work that I'm doing. I think that's not right. If you're doing the same work, you deserve better. We need to work on that here in West Sacramento, as well as Northern California, period. 31% of workers lack health insurance. That's nearly 3 times the rate for all workers. We have seen the devastation from COVID-19, where how important healthcare is for everyone. These workers should not be excluded of that. To help eliminate this problem, we need to make sure that prevailing wage healthcare apprenticeship, compliance, and local hire is required on housing projects built in West Sacramento. As leaders of the community, what are you going to do to work towards that goal, to make sure that this doesn't happen to the workers anymore? They deserve better. Thank you for your time, and enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
There are no more requests to speak.
All right, thank you. To item number 2, correspondence and staff communication from the Planning Commission Secretary.
I'm sorry, can you give us 1 second?
Yeah.
I have 1 additional request to speak.
Okay.
Danny Langford.
Sorry about that. There was some
Yeah.
confusion when I turned in my card, I guess.
Okay. And this isn't related to item number 4?
No.
Okay.
That's a whole separate issue.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. I just wanted to come up here and clarify, because last time I was before you is when River Park was here, and Mr. McCoy, the traffic guy, got up here and made a statement to you guys, and I just want to clarify it because I double-checked it, because sitting in my seat that night, I knew what he was saying was not correct. He said that they have, the West Sac PD has travel trailers, speed trailers, that they go and they take pictures of the license plates, and it's all on the video from that meeting, of the license plates, and then our officers go to those people's house and say, we know you're speeding, please stop speeding. We know where you live. I contacted the staff in the police department. First of all, yes, there are trailers with that capability, but West Sacramento does not have them. Second of all, we do not, they laughed at me when I said that. He said that the police officers go to people's houses because we don't have the police force to be able to do that. Let's be real. We all know that you guys sitting up there know how many police officers we generally have patrolling our streets in one time. So that is why many of us don't trust things that staff, and we get up here and we're very passionate about it because of things like that. That is inaccurate information that you, the commissioners, are being given by a staff member. That's where some of us have a problem with. I just want to clarify that so that you know why we come across a little hot sometimes, as well as the fact you were not told the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. McCoy, if you would, sorry. I don't want this to turn into a back and forth between members of city staff and the public, but
This isn't really what we're here to do today.
all right, thank you. Then we will put that on the back burner and move on to item number 2, correspondence and staff communication from Planning Commission Secretary.
Yes, you should have received several items of correspondence. Some we've forwarded via email, and some were brought here just tonight, right before the meeting. So those aren't anything we've had, opportunity to digest yet. But we want to make sure that you have. There was probably at least a half a dozen, comments that came in either via email or hard copy. If you're missing them, we can get you additional copies. But we have received them. To some of them, just were quite right before the start of the meeting. That's all for staff correspondence at this time.
All right. Thank you. And then item number 3, disclosure of ex parte communications since our previous meeting. None? All right, thank you. Moving on. There are no presentations and nothing on the consent agenda, so that brings us to public hearings. Item number 4, which is the public hearing regarding proposed Yarbrough Phase 1 vesting tentative subdivision map, number 5224, and development agreement amendments. All right.
Good evening, Chair Delgado, Vice Chair, members of the Commission. My name's Andrea Aus, and I'm the Director of Community Development for the city. Pleasure to be with you tonight. I'm here tonight as a substitute for Daniel Baruman, who unfortunately fell ill today, and so he's home resting and I hope recovering. I did want to identify him as being someone who's worked very, very hard on this project, and I want to note that publicly. I hope he feels better soon, and no one is more disappointed, I can tell you, to not be here tonight than Daniel. Tonight I'm joined, however, by a lot of technical experts and city staff in the room here who have assisted in bringing this project forward this evening. So tonight we're here to talk about the Yarbrough project, and I'm going to provide a brief overview of that. Just going to give you a brief run of show here. So following the overview, I'm going to provide details of the vesting tentative subdivision map phase 1 proposal. And I'm going to call it the map or the subdivision map from this point on. Then I will be talking about the development agreement. I'll be calling that the DA from this point forward, and the proposed amendments and why they are necessary at this time. I'm also going to touch on something that we have seen in the public comments, questions about the viability of the existing environmental impact report for the project as it pertains to the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. So I will touch upon that, and hopefully we'll be able to address some of the comments and questions we've received. And then lastly, I'd be focusing on the recommended actions that we are proposing as staff to the commission tonight. And after my presentation and any commission clarifying questions or comments, the applicant is here and has prepared a brief presentation about the project. So just a very high level project overview and context. The Yarbrough Master Plan was envisioned and has been envisioned for nearly 20 years. It received approvals from the city over 16 years ago now, in 2008. What was approved at that time were a general plan amendment in terms of the land use. So changing the general plan land use designations to conform with what the proposal for Yarbrough is. Rezonings to conform to the general plan land use designation. Master design guideline, a certified EIR, which we'll touch on, and the development agreement, or the DA. All of this information about what had been, all of the documentation which had been approved in 2008 is available on the city's project website for the public to access. I do want to note that this is one of 3 of the large Southport projects. One is Liberty, which proposes approximately 1,503 residential dwelling units, and the second one is River Park, which at this point proposes 2,714 units. Here's a location, a vicinity map for those of you that are unaware of where Yarbrough is in the context of the city. Barely see the laser pointer. Okay, so on the top here is Highway 80. Industrial Boulevard is here. Here's the Palmadesi Bridge crossing the Barge Canal, and here's the Deepwater Ship Channel. Jefferson Avenue, pretty distinctive. That's a swath across the city. And the Clarksburg Branch Line Trail is also approximately parallel to it. River City High School is in this area here. The other 2 master plan projects, Liberty is approximately in this area, and River Park kind of swings around like this. And Yarbrough is the largest in terms of land area and units. The phasing map, this is the entirety of the Yarbrough project. Just again, to orient you, Jefferson cutting a swath here through the project. Bevan Road, which is currently a country road, is at the northern edge. The phase 1 that's before you tonight, the tentative map, is colored in yellow here. Phase 2 is on the western side of Jefferson Boulevard. The Bridgeway Lakes, Bridgeway Island projects that exist today are just north of this area. Phase 3 would be south of Phase 1, and Phase 4 would be south of Phase. Touching on the general plan, our current general plan and zoning, the Yarbrough project was incorporated in the land use designations and the zoning map back in 2008, as I addressed earlier. Phase 1 focuses on largely low-density residential development, but also includes open space and park as well. The project overview for Yarbrough, in general, it encompasses approximately 713 acres in the southern section of the city, which I just showed. It's envisioned in the master plan as a new neighborhood, essentially, with a village core neighborhood serving commercial or mixed-use services, a residential mix of land uses, some of which are proposed here in Phase 1, the map tonight. A privately owned but publicly accessible golf course, excuse me, open space, and a canal system that will include also a 56-acre lake park. Now let's talk about the Phase 1 tentative map. Phase 1 accommodates about 179 acres, I'm sorry. What's proposed are 548 what they call small residential lots. They're not necessarily small, but we also have some larger lots which are not necessarily residential in nature. So it's a 548 residential lot subdivision. They're primarily detached single-family homes that are. In addition to those 548, there are approximately 18 large lots, and that accommodates about 70 acres. On those 70 acres, we would see the relocation of Fire Station 42, which exists in a small area, a small building in Southport. Many of you, it's along Jefferson, many of you may be aware of. It also includes a large area, 2 parcels here, that would be potentially accommodating affordable housing. And it also includes, these large lots include parkland. So here's a 5-acre neighborhood serving park in Phase 1. There's a small pocket park near the Bevan Road entrance. And there's a couple of other open space and drainage areas here that are part of the large lot. I should note that the primary access to Phase 1 is going to be via a new extension of Southport Parkway from Jefferson all the way into the project. And that would be done as Phase 1. So essentially that would be serving as the front door to the project. And it would be developed as a minor arterial. So a larger facility, road facility with curb gutter sidewalks, landscaping, and even a trail. The northern portion of the proposal, like I said, includes the relocation of Fire Station 42, the affordable housing site, Village Parkway, the park, and this vertical parcel is the main drain canal. The southern portion, the main drain takes a 90-degree angle here, the existing canal. There's also a large retention basin and a portion of what will be the golf course ultimately. This street here, oh, there's also a small park here. This street here, which we'll call A Street, as it's noted in the tentative map, is essentially the spine through phase. Here. Street A goes all the way up to Bev. Now let's talk about the development agreement amendments. So a development agreement is a legally binding contract between the city and a developer group. It often includes terms and improvements that are not normally required as part of our codes. They are not baked into our codes, but they are additional either amenities or facilities that can be negotiated essentially in a contract. It does require review by the Planning Commission for recommendation to the City Council. And because a development agreement is approved by ordinance, it has to have 2 readings at the City. Since 2008, however, the existing development agreement that was approved in 2008, many things have changed, including this was before the Southport Levee Improvement Project that happened. It was before the South River Road Bridge was constructed, which is named the Mike McGowan. There are other projects in Southport or in the city that were in the original development agreement that have already been constructed since 2008 for whatever reason, however we were able to fund them. So they are being removed because they're no longer, they're moot, essentially. DA amendments, however, include not only removing some of these projects, but we have added other projects, other considerations in order to enhance the public benefits, and enhance the public facilities, and to allow the project to move forward. Another important component of a DA is that it allows for an agreement on timing of these big improvements, these big backbone infrastructure improvements, that no developer would be able to do it at one time because they may not have cash flow yet to make these big improvements. However, through a development agreement, we can agree upon terms that will set forward a path for making sure that the improvement over. So some notable amendments, and this is not a complete list, but we have adjusted the term and the extension abilities of the development agreement. We have removed the South River Road Bridge. They said we've removed the reference section to the levee improvements, and we have enhanced and included sections on Jefferson Boulevard improvements. So for those of you that are familiar, Jefferson Boulevard becomes a 2-lane, very inadequate, quite frankly, facility down in the Southport area. Doesn't have bike lanes, doesn't have sidewalks. You're taking your life in your hands if you're riding a bike. I know. So we have built in, because of the additional traffic that's anticipated and the additional traffic, frankly, that's out there, we have built in provisions in the development agreement to improve and widen Jefferson Boulevard that will include curb, gutter, and sidewalk, additional lanes, bike lane, and land. We've also added in the improvements of Bevan and Burroughs to collector status at later points in the development. Bevan and Burroughs in our general plan mobility element that was just adopted last year are now considered collector streets. And so in order for it to, those 2 streets to act as additional opportunities for access into and out of Yarbrough and through it, frankly, in addition to Village Parkway, we have negotiated in the development agreement the improvement of those 2 streets into collector facilities that will be consistent with our general plan. So let's talk a little bit about how it's paid for. So the development agreement mentions throughout it a term called a comprehensive phasing and finance plan. The term of art here is public facilities and financing plan. So they're synonymous. So whenever you see in the development agreement, comprehensive phasing and financing plan, we have attached to the staff report the public facilities and financing. What that does is identify how certain facilities are going to be paid. It provides a summary of all the backbone infrastructure, all the public facilities, and the strategy to which those improvements are going to be made. And that focuses both on phase one improvements as well as throughout the build out of the entire project. So a public services community facilities district, or CFD, is another measure that is set up to dictate the public facilities needed not only for Yarbrough, but for the other major projects in Southport. The CFD, as we call it, is currently being drafted, and the owner and applicant they've submitted a draft TFFP for our review. The term of art in the development agreement is the city and the applicant have to get to substantive terms, meaning we have to agree on the basic framework of the PFFP and other documents in the DA in order for us to move forward at this time with the tentative map. However, a final version, meaning we all have to get it buttoned up, is required to be approved by the time the first small lot final map is approved. So this tentative map, we're agreeing on the basic term. It's when the final map for this that you're being asked to consider tonight comes through, that comes through to only the city council procedurally, but it's at that point that the PFFP has to be final. So Jefferson Boulevard, there's a number of improvements. As I mentioned before, we would be looking for improvements in phase one from Linden Road to the project, or Southport Parkway. The improvements are to be started upon initial construction of subdivision improvements in the first small lot final map. So again, we're holding to the first final map and the completion of the 400th final home inspection in phase one. So that will allow for the complete street of Jefferson from Linden all the way to Southport Park. Any potential modifications to the design and to the construction will need to be based on the sufficient funding at that time, allocated at that time. Moving on to Bevan Road. Here's a picture of Bevan Road. Initially, Bevan Road is to be used only for an emergency vehicle access to the project. I want to make clear that this will mean that Bevan is still accessible and available for vehicles from Jefferson all the way to Greg, just as it is today. So there's no change there. But as it intersects with Street A, it would only be allowed to have fire trucks or emergency vehicles access it because it will be gated off, essentially. And the reason for that is because of the location of Bevan Road, it becomes very easy for people that live on the north side of Yarbrough to access Bevan Road in and out. So the idea here is we need to get the regulatory permits that are required to widen Bevan Road to a collector status, and we need to get additional right-of-way because the current right-of-way is not wide enough. So in order for us to do that, it's going to take some time. And in order for them to get going on their project, we are just simply saying, use Southport Parkway as your primary ingress and egress for vehicular traffic in and out of the project. The same is true with Burroughs, except Burroughs is at the far south end of the project of phase 1. It will be constructed, however, to a rural road standard, which it currently is not. There's a picture of Burroughs, but a rural road standard, FYI, is 2 12-foot travel lanes and 2 8-foot gravel shoulders. This does not meet that standard. So they will have to build it to the standard of a rural road as an interim, but the developer would begin construction of Burroughs as a collector to meet the general plan within 36 months of obtaining the city has to obtain the additional right-of-way and get all of the permitting lined up, the regulatory. It's estimated that that would be most critical during phase 3 of the project. Other DA amendments include funding for South City Limit Levee Trail to the Clarksburg Branch Line Trail. Also a South River Road bike and pedestrian bridge, where there is none currently, and funding for the Main Drain Canal Trail. I did want to identify that there is a correction necessary to the DA document that was attached to the staff report. In Exhibit J of the DA, you'll see in a table that there is red lines going through what was, or so it looks like a deletion of what refers to the Enterprise Bridge. The Enterprise Bridge was never part of the original development agreement document. I just wanted to make clear that that should not have been showing up in the final document because it was never in it. However, it was considered during the discussion of the amendments of the DA to have some funding allocated to help further the Enterprise Bridge design and environmental study. However, we decided that it was best served for the community if those monies were reallocated to the Jefferson widening project and the Jefferson improvement into a complete street. So I just wanted to make clear that it was never in the DA. It was simply an add during the discussions with the developer, but it shows it's deleted. It should have been completely deleted because we decided later in the negotiations to redirect to Jefferson. CEQA. Okay, so as I said before, there was an EIR done and certified in 2008. The potential environmental impacts that would result from the project, of the proposed project, were summarized in the EIR. There were mitigation measures developed and are attached as attachment 7 in your packet. What I did want to identify, because we have received some public comments relative to the viability of an EIR that was certified in 2008, now that we're in 2024. But I can say that for any new environmental review to be necessary by law, the city must have substantial evidence of new or more severe environmental impact. We have determined that the project remains substantially the same from that prior approval. We do have a letter that was essentially a legal analysis from Cox Castle, which the applicant has hired. And we have had that letter that essentially analyzes what I just said in much more detail, analyzed by our city attorney's office. And they have concurred with the conclusions and the findings of that. I did want to note that the landowner has indeed completed agricultural land mitigation and biological mitigation through the YOLO Habitat Conservancy. Since the EIR certification, I did want to identify that several changes in CEQA have been made, and that includes the way that we evaluate traffic and the impact associated with traffic. It used to be a level of service evaluation. Now it has changed to vehicles miles traveled. The analysis of greenhouse gas emissions was not something that was prominent in EIRs back in 2008 and earlier. Now it is a requirement. There are new air district standards. There is new sections on wildfire analysis and cultural and tribal resource evaluation. So those are major pieces of CEQA that have evolved since 2008. But again, Section 15162 of the CEQA guidelines does identify triggers for and thresholds for additional environmental review. So, the recommended action. So for the tentative subdivision map, the Planning Commission has the primary approval for that action. The decision is appealable to the City Council. And we have the resolution for that in your packet. The DA amendments, as I said before, the City Council has the authority to approve by ordinance. But the Planning Commission is here as an advisory. There are DA amendments that require the DA amendments require 2 hearings. First, second. And I wanted to identify that we have received numerous public comments for this item, and it's great to see so many people here in the audience tonight. Those comments came, some of them came pretty early, and we have been able to address them in the presentation, and I'm obviously here for questions. Those public comments have been made available to the Commission and the public. But we've also received comments that came in fairly late, as Secretary Tilley mentioned. And so we have not obviously been able to either review, consider, or respond to those comments yet. And so with that, staff's recommendation is to conduct the public hearing on the tentative subdivision map and the amendments to the development agreement, and find that no subsequent environmental review is required prior to the approval of the tentative map or the development agreement amendment, and to find that the subdivision map and amendments are consistent with CEQA and the EIR that was adopted in 2008. Then to adopt the resolution 24-2C, approving the tentative subdivision map, and we recommend that the Planning Commission make a recommendation in the affirmative for the City Council to adopt Ordinance 2411, which is Attachment 2, detailing the amendments to the DA, subject to the conditions and findings identified in the agenda report. So that concludes my presentation, and I am available, or staff is available, to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. At this time, before we hear from the applicant, I will open it up to questions from the commission. Yeah, please.
You had mentioned, actually, one of the questions I had written down about the expansion of Bevan and Burroughs from the current use to the rural, or to then later on to a collector road. Can you tell us what's the difference between the rural standard road and a collector road?
So collector road will have curb, gutter, and sidewalk. on both sides. We'll have bike lanes. We'll have landscape. Requires more land and the rural road really doesn't have the curb gutter sidewalks, only the travel lanes and a gravel shoulder on each side.
Right. Okay. So so once the project commences, then those at least boroughs in particular, boroughs would be expanded to the rural standard from what it's currently at.
Correct.
Okay. And then as the project develops, then it would move to that collector status?
Yep.
And the same thing for Bevan as well?
That's correct.
Okay.
Except Bevan, because we don't have very much right of way at all, and there's an RD 900 ditch right next to it, it's a little more complicated. So we are suggesting at this point that it not be developed as a rural road in an interim basis, but instead be resurfaced so that a fire truck or a public safety vehicle can access Yarbrough from Bevan, but not making it available for numerous cars from Yarbrough to access Bevan in and out.
I think I actually had several more questions, but you actually answered most of them in your presentation, so thank you.
All right. Yeah. Anyone else? Any other commissioners? Okay. Yeah, I just had some additional questions about the public facilities finance plan. As I was reading through the DA, I didn't really see that that was included as a link to the city website, so I didn't get a chance to review that in its draft form. But yeah, I do have some concerns just as we look at these larger developments, the amount of investment that the city will have to make in the future to maintain public facilities, roads, things like that. So could you give me a little bit more detail about where we're at with that? Because I did see that there was some things in the DA about, funding sources and guaranteeing that we'll have the funds to maintain this in the future. So can you give me some more detail about that since, like I said, I didn't get a chance to read through that online?
Sure, and I can defer. We do have finance staff here that have been more actively engaged in those discussions, as well as the applicant can speak to it. The PFFP at a high level provides a structure and some basic points of agreement, terms on what the improvements will be, when they need to happen, and how it's going to be financed, not just during construction, but O&M, so the operations and maintenance. As I said in the presentation, there is going to be a community facilities district that would be formed, and that is in the form of they call them Mellow Bruce district, and that provides for additional ongoing revenue to assist in the maintenance and funding of ongoing.
Okay. Yeah, if staff from the finance department would mind adding to that.
Good evening. Yeah, basically, Andrea Else spoke to it, but we are in discussion with the applicant on a Melrose CFD that would look into perpetuity for services that are project specific. So that would be police services, it would be any lighting and landscaping, road maintenance. And so we're in discussions with that, but nothing's finalized on the service CF.
And I'm sorry, would you remind me when that needs to be agreed upon between the applicant and the city?
The final map.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then I had another question again related to finances. So the applicant is supposed to be providing improvements to Jefferson Boulevard. But then there was mention of fee credits. Could you explain to the commission how that works? Is the applicant actually going to be providing the funds for that, or is it going to come, is the city going to still end up paying for that?
Okay, and hopefully I'm not out of my depth, so I'm going to take a swing at this. So we collect a traffic impact fee, okay, from new development. And so when the applicant / developer says, okay, I'll widen Jefferson, but there is going to be at least a portion of this that's going to be eligible for fee credit, that means that they put out more than they would be handing over to us in the form of traffic impact. Okay, so that means that because there is that delta, then they are qualified for credits because they've paid more than they owe. And if I am speaking out of turn, please let me know. But I think I'm okay on that. Oh, yeah.
And with that, they would be, we would enter and would be taken to council a DRA, a development reimbursement agreement. So that would just what is more than what is their impact the project. These are then indexed by our. Oh, sorry. So that's how the development reimbursement agreement that's taken to council is looks at the impact of their regional versus what the less of what.
Okay, so we expect that their work on the improvements to Jefferson will exceed what they actually owe in traffic impact fees. Okay, thank you.
And I have one last question. I know in the map, and I remember speaking with the developer prior to the meeting a few weeks ago about the new station 42 that's going to be going in down there. At what point during the course of the project should that portion of it be completed?
Okay, that's in Exhibit H of the proposed development. So the landowner dedicates the land in accordance with the Comprehensive Development Phasing Plan, which is the PFFP, and will commit funding of the design of the Fire Station 42 upon approval, the first small lot final map in Phase 1. The funding will not exceed the total of the fire fee levied on the 548 lots for Phase 1. When the project and when the landowner dedicates over the land, they're also going to be they're going to be stubbing out the utilities to that site for eventual building of Fire Station 42. And the project landowner shall contribute to the construction funding of the fire station subject to the PFFP.
So basically, so that's coinciding with the development of Phase 1.
Yeah. The design.
The
has
design.
to. It's not the construction.
What about the construction? Do we have a timeline for the construction? And I'll tell you right now, it's a very selfish question on my part because that's right in my neighborhood. And with that much development, not only with this project, but then also with all the other ones that are going in down there, to expect that Station 42 in its current state could in any way, shape, or form provide adequate service to those developing communities and the existing communities down in that part of town is completely unrealistic.
I will have to give, unless somebody else can.
In the development agreement in Exhibit H, it discusses that the exact timing
Oh,
of
it's
the
in
construction and funding is going to be laid out in the PFFP.
And with us tonight is our city manager, who can opine on this.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Aaron Laurel. I'm the city manager here. It's been a long time since I've been to a Planning Commission meeting, so I haven't had a chance to meet all of you, but good to be here. So I unlike a lot of DAs the city deals with, and this is a very large one, have been involved more so on this one than in others. And I think, it's a great question in terms of when Station 42 gets relocated. That is just a part of that puzzle. What's unique about this project is when we talk about the CFD financing that's going to be in place, one of the CFDs the developer is agreeing to fund is one that will fund fire services. So as you probably know, there's been a big issue with, you have to think of the fire service as kind of a network system, and the engines that are throughout the city respond all over the city, and in some cases to other cities as well. So Station 42 is, as you mentioned, the primary service station for the southern part of the city, including Bridgeway Lakes, Yarbrough. The plan is to move it over to Yarbrough, and as Andrea noted, there's funding that is being submitted up front by the developer to pay for the design, the land, stepping the utilities. But in addition to that, there's that CFD, and that CFD will be funding the reinstallment of Engine 45, which was taken out of service back when the recession hit. It was one of the cost-saving measures the city implemented at the time. So in that case, there's a period of time between when obviously the station will be built. It's not going to be at day one. It will be funded by the impact fees the project will pay, in addition to other Southport development, including Liberty and River Park. But in the meantime, Engine 45, there is funding that this project will be paying for that will bring back Engine 45 into service, and that in consultation with our fire chief and the fire department will be adequate to serve the project and other parts of Southport in the meantime. The city is pursuing different avenues for ultimately funding the construction of the station. We're actually looking at a fairly major infrastructure bond about this time next year that could be something that would be a potential source for it. And just to be clear, that's a bond on our tax increment district. It's not new taxes, anything like that. It would pay for multiple improvements throughout the city. So there are different options for how we actually finance the construction of that station. But I want to be very clear. There is not an obligation in this DA that the station will be completed by the time of a certain date. It's funding for the design and providing the land, and the city will aggressively pursue funding the construction of the station as we go forward. That helps overall.
All right, thank you. Any other comments before we move on to presentation from the applicant? No? Then at this point, we will hear from the applicant.
Does it? Planning Commissioners, my name is David Stroud. I've met some of you I have not. We are the owners, me and my partners are the owners of a project called Yarbrough. Andrea has already gone through a pretty thorough explanation of where it is and what it might be and what it will be. If I can, I'm going to take you through some of our experiences here in Southport for the last, since 1989, when we bought our first properties here. We started with a development called Bridgeway Island, which was just right around 1,500 single-family lots that were developed and were sold subsequently to about 7 or 8 different home builders over the course of several years. After that, our I think work doesn't. Is it? Oh, there it is. Subsequent to that, then we we're continuing to acquire property, and we bought the property that is now the project in the community called Bridgeway Lakes. That turned out to be, I think, a very nice project, as did Bridgeway Island. We've been pleased with the comments and the feedback we get from people who live there, and we kept going. Subsequent to that, we ended up buying and acquiring properties from probably 15 different landowners down in the southern area of the city, which took some time. You already know where the project is then. That's the location. The next slide is basically an overlay. I hope you can see it better on your screens than the folks in the audience can see this, because it doesn't really show up real well. But that's basically the overlay on the land of the project. It doesn't show any of the detail, just as an exhibit to show where the project is. And you already know where Jefferson Boulevard is and how Southport Parkway comes through and intersects at Jefferson Boulevard right now. And you know where the Village Parkway is right now. There's been mention of traffic improvements and what's going to get built and where is it going to get built. And I wanted to spend just a little bit a moment to explain a little bit more detail as to what some of those improvements will entail. Again, you can't see. I know that folks sitting in the room can't see any of this detail right here. I hope you can on your screen. We've tried to blow it up a little bit. These are improvements that will be made by the project to Jefferson Boulevard north of the project. I have a list of them, and I'm going to go through them here just for a second. And maybe I'll go to the next slide to show the project first. We've talked about how Southport Parkway will be built through the project and will ultimately connect over here in this location, right by Mr. Gabriel's house, to Village Parkway. We've talked about how Bevan Road would be rebuilt and brought up to a collector road standard. We've talked about how Burroughs Road would be the same. Actually, Burroughs Road, ultimately, when this area, when we get to the next map, it'll be easier to explain, but will ultimately be cul-de-sac right here at the eastern edge of Mr. Johnson's property. This is where golf course will be, and Burroughs Road will continue over to South River Road. What else do we have? Stoplights. There's a stoplight here at Bevan and Jefferson. There's a stoplight at Southport Parkway and Jefferson Boulevard. Go backward. In addition to those improvements, we're constructing a right turn lane on westbound Linden Road at Jefferson Boulevard. That would be, where is that? That's right up in here. Well, that's this improvement right here. There's a third northbound left turn lane from Jefferson Boulevard to Lake Washington Boulevard. We will be widening Jefferson Boulevard, as has already been described, from Linden Road, basically, to Marshall Road, and then from Marshall Road down to the intersection of Southport Parkway in the project. We will be adding signalization modifications at Higgins Road. We will be adding a traffic signal or a roundabout. Rather, that's up to the Transportation Department, depending on what they prefer. But in this area right here of Southport Parkway and Marshall Road, there will be a new northbound lane and a traffic signal. There will be, as I said already, a traffic signal at Jefferson and Bevan. So essentially, I think, as was explained by Andrea, when the project was approved, the city and the planners basically anticipated that there would be units built in addition to what was already constructed in Southport. And so they looked into the future and they said, when you get to a certain number of units, you have to build X number of improvements. You have to build Jefferson Boulevard. You have to build what's on this map. Quite frankly, we had anticipated that we'd be able to start construction and be able to build some of the project before we had to build the entire section of Jefferson Boulevard. That's not the case now. More homes have been built since the project was approved, and so we're now having to basically do those improvements, provide those improvements up front. Those have been discussed. It is a significant investment, but on the other hand, it's required and it's needed because there are needed improvements on Jefferson Boulevard, and we acknowledge that. It's obvious. There have been questions about the lake and the drainage plan. Our engineer from CBG, Andrea Blanca, is here. I'm going to ask him in just a second to come up and explain what this map is. It's basically a layout of the drainage system, the main drain, and the lakes that are associated with the project. This is, again, the entire project. We are going to be approaching it in 4 phases. You already know where the first phase is over. Here we go. Over in this area, the first phase is 548 lots. It's actually a mixture of densities in terms of medium density lots and low density lots. Then we will get over into phase 2. The specific design of, as an example, the 5-acre park, the pocket parks, etc. We will be submitting that, and as you've noted, there are a lot of things that are triggered by that first final map. We can't get to the point of, there were questions about the financing. We can't get to the point of actually securing and obligating the land to a CFD or financing until we get to that final map. It's that final map that allows the construction to begin. In terms of the timing, once we get through this process here, and if you all approve the tentative map, then the next activity that will actually be incurring is that our engineer will begin the specific design of that first tentative map. He will be laying out the geometrics and all of the different analyses of where the sewer lines go and the water. All of those things have to be determined and have to be analyzed and engineered and then checked by your engineering department. That process likely will take 9 to 12 months to take place. During that process is when we will be sitting down with Mark and the finance group and looking at what type of financing is best suited for the project, what CFD funds can be allocated to the project to pay for things like, as you see in the development here, public services, police and fire services, yes, to build infrastructure, to build roadways, public improvement roadways, also to maintain those roadways and infrastructure, and to build parks and to build the open spaces that are there. So all of that detail, which is kind of fleshed out in what's now called a PFFP. We should just call it a financing plan, but it's kind of fleshed out, but it has to be completed and can't be completed actually until the final design is done and you have a property that could actually be recorded. Like when you buy a house, you record the house in your name. Once this final map is done and can be recorded, you then can actually put debt on it, and that's CFD debt. Now, not to mislead you, it's going to be the people who buy those homes that are going to be paying that debt. They're going to be paying their regular taxes, and then they're also going to be paying another level of tax to pay for all of the things that we're talking about here tonight, to pay for the streets, to pay for the roadways, to pay for the park, to pay for Jefferson Boulevard. All of those things are going to ultimately have to be leveled with realistically what can a new homeowner pay out there. The homes will not all of them will be inexpensive. There will be some expensive homes out there. But the point is, we've tried to look at the design of the project. If you've looked at some of the tables in the DA, 58% of the lots in the entire project are either medium density or high density lots. Now, high density doesn't necessarily mean apartments. It can mean detached, smaller homes, as is out in Bridgeway Lakes right now. It can mean townhome. It can mean apartment. But the fact is, we have tried to address the affordability issues here as best we can. In fact, SACOG, if you've heard of the SACOG blueprint, there was just a meeting today where the SACOG group was looking at alternatives in housing. How does a community provide a range of affordability? What does that mean? What does that mean to West Sacramento? And we think that with the range of housing type, of lot sizes, obviously a smaller lot, you end up with a smaller home. That means a less expensive home than on a larger lot. It's making logical sense. From there, basically, I've talked about the timing. I've talked about the fact that there will be public safety funds included in the financing. The project is, the first map is here. Andrea has pointed out where the fire station will go, where the affordable housing will go. We are obligated under the city ordinance to provide affordable housing with the project. The first group of affordable housing would be on this 12-acre site right here. It's identified with a term sheet that's been negotiated between city staff and us and a group that we have negotiated an agreement with to build that affordable housing, a group called Urban Core. They will be starting the process now, once this map gets approved, of actually approaching the state for the grants and the funding, and their lenders for the funding that's going to be required. You obviously, in these times, you don't provide affordable housing to people at the levels that are required by the ordinance here in town, unless you have some type of substantial substance other than just, we are donating the land, but then these folks have to find financing and tax credits, et cetera, that would allow this project to get built, the affordable housing project to get built, to bring down the rents and bring down the prices so that it meets that affordability level. Again, the map is, the first map of 548 units is a combination of medium density and low density housing. 49% of it is medium density housing. So again, it's trying to address the fact that not all of these lots, this is going to be a golf course oriented, amenity rich community, but you can't orient all of the lots to that type of product, or you would be really restricting the range of folks who could afford to buy there. All of these factors come into account as you're trying to design a project like this, as you're trying to put together the financing district, as we negotiate with the city manager and his team to pay for police protection and fire protection and new fire stations, et cetera. All that has to be taken into account. Recognizing, bottom line, I'm just going to say it again, the folks who are going to be moving into these houses, they're going to be paying the bill. All of these amenities that we're talking about, the golf course, the lake parks, et cetera, they're going to be footing the bill. And so we're trying to levy that with, how do we make this as affordable as possible to as many people in the region that want to live here? And there are a lot of people that want to live here. There are a lot of people who live in Bridgeway Lakes that want to live in this new project from the calls that we get. So, we think this will be an attractive, successful, and project that people will want to live in. In fact, I'm sure of it. It's just a matter of now getting started. And like I said, after this process takes place, then we'll basically be in about another 9 months to a year process of really finalizing all of these details on the final maps and the financing, et cetera. This is basically a map. Again, I hope folks in this audience can see this. It's not really a great screen up there, but this is a map of the open space, an 18-hole golf course, the lakes and the parks and the trails that go around the lake. This area in here that's white right now, that's all what in the land plan, or excuse me, in the zoning map is called mixed use. Mixed use offers quite a range of uses that can be done there, from retail, which we believe with Bridgeway Lakes and this project and Bridgeway Island and the other people that already live down there will support a good base of retail and services for the people that live there. Doesn't happen first day, but it happens as rooftops come in and as customers come in, then it will happen. The rest of those areas in there will likely end up being higher density housing. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean apartments. Not that apartments are bad. People need an affordable place to live. So I guess to emphasize my point, the land plan and the project provides a wide spectrum of housing type to hopefully accommodate a wide spectrum of people that want to live in the project. There was a resident a couple years ago sent this to me and said, "What the heck you guys doing? Get this project started." He tells me he was a member of and is a member of the West Sacramento Golf Club. I didn't know there was one, but apparently they were getting ready for being able to play golf here in Yarbrough. Again, this is just the area of the golf, the green area. Again, it's an 18-hole course. We're looking at the design right now to facilitate basically, for those of you that play golf, an out and back 9 on both sides of Jefferson Boulevard. I think I'm about getting done with my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. I'm going to ask Andrea, if you wouldn't mind coming up for just a second and explaining the lake design, the drainage design and the lake. And then I've got one more thing to say.
Evening, Commissioners. My name is Andrea Belanca. I'm with Carlson, Barbie & Gibson, the civil engineer on the project. One of this map here just sort of shows you our regional plan for the lake system for the Yarbrough project and sort of how it sits relative to all of the southern portion of the city of West Sacramento. One of the comments we have received recently from the public was in relationship to the operation of these lakes and how they would function through the course of time. And I'd like to thank staff, city staff, for, that was one of the issues they brought up early in the project, so we've had some time to kind of look into it. The overall function of these lakes is for basically stormwater mitigation. So during the winter time, they're basically set at a certain elevation such that they will fill during storm events. What the comments from the public seem to be concerned with is kind of the opposite time of the year, which is the summertime, where the lake levels have a tendency to drop down a little bit lower. And so that's, maybe less a functionality issue, but more of an operation and sort of aesthetic issue in the summertime. So, and a lot of the examples are compared to the Bridgeway Lakes project itself. And so, in the summertime, there's kind of 3 things that are occurring that sort of dictate the amount of water that is available for these lakes. The lakes all have evaporation. They also have what they call infiltration and groundwater interface. And then the last item is sort of the amount of, we'll call just supplemental water that's available to these lakes. And what you'll find on the Yarbrough project, it has a set of very different and maybe a little bit more favorable constraints than there were on the Bridgeway Lake project itself. Specifically, the Yarbrough project is at the very downstream end of the main drain system. So it's kind of at the lowest point of the whole drainage shed. The Bridgeway lakes are set about 3 to 4 feet higher just because of the way the weirs and the other systems set up. So gravity alone is going to obviously drive some more water toward the Yarbrough project. And then the second major benefit of the location of the Yarbrough project being at the very downstream end, these lakes basically function like one big bathtub. So the when the water gets down to the end, they will back up into these lakes and sort of fill up. Now, being at the very downstream end, we have the ability in the design to sort of focus our efforts to keep water in one lake over another. As Andrea pointed out earlier, we have in the northwest corner, we have what we call our lake park, which is sort of our focal lake, whereas most of the other lakes are more natural and functional lakes. And inside of that portion, when you look at the way the main drain functions, one unique aspect about Yarbrough, and you can kind of see it on this map here, is all of that sort of supplemental water that comes out in the summer, whether it be irrigation runoff, summer storms, or other things, you can see it all comes down through the main drain and will all end up in the Yarbrough project as a whole, and that shed area is, basically the entirety of the southern half of the city. Whereas the Bridgeway Lakes project is very, I'll call it hydraulically isolated. It basically is only the project itself. So when you look at this map here, you could see just the sheer size of area. There's a lot more area contributing to the main drainage than that was going to Bridgeway Lakes, which will result in a lot of this sort of supplemental flow in the summer coming down there. So between those two items, that will help us manage and mitigate the water elevations inside of the Yarbrough project. And then lastly, because the project includes a golf course, the golf course design will include a well, an irrigation well that will, typically how the golf course works, they pump the water out of the well, they put it into a lake, and then they use the lake and irrigate all of the golf course. That will also give us an opportunity to consider supplementing any of the lakes should we choose to. So, there's a number of other items that we could get into from a technical standpoint, but I did want to address some of the comments that were coming out from the public specifically on that. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Otherwise, I can turn it back over to Sid.
Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and finish up with Mr. Stroud's.
One more point to make about the lakes and the number of them and the size of them and the design of them. And this goes back quite some time again. Back when RD 900 was looking at the need for a new lift station at the end of the main drain, it pumps water out into the deep water ship channel. Basically, that's where all the water in Southport goes, is there. And in order to downsize the pump station, make it less expensive, they asked us if we would be able to design our project to accommodate more water. So basically, we have done that. We don't need all these lakes for just our project, but what we're doing is we're accommodating water from all of the other areas of Southport in order to, again, write down the cost of that lift station. We actually put a CFD bond on our property back then in order to help the city pay for it, which we subsequently paid off. But that was part of the negotiation at the time and getting through this process of trying to accommodate not just our needs, but the city's needs as well. One more thing I failed to mention, we also, in our development agreement, we are obligated to negotiate and sit down with the school district and come up with a school district plan for whatever their plan is to accommodate whatever their needs are down there. We have a meeting now scheduled sometime later in August to sit down with them. We won't be able to get to that final map until we have that agreement completed with the school district. I guess I'm done. I would be remiss if I didn't say one more thing. Over the course of the years, a lot of the land that you see there that we have already constructed and built lots on, sold to home builders, and this project was owned by a long-time landowner, the Rogers family. The Rogers family have been in town forever, and multi-generational. We got to know them when we first started to try to buy land here in Southport. I got to know Albert Sr. and Albert Jr. Albert Jr. hates to be called Albert Jr., hated to be called Albert Jr. His name was Buck. passed away not too long ago, and I just wanted to say he was a good friend. So, and also, I also would be remiss if I didn't mention that my longtime business partner of over 30 years, Frank Andrews, passed away at the end of December. So he's been with me through all of this. I wish he was here now to help us finish it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation and comments. So, Commission, I would ask that we hold comments and questions for the applicant until we've heard from the public, just because they've been waiting for quite some time, and I would like to let them get to say what they need to say.
I have one more quick
Any-
interruption before we get to public comment because of
Yes.
something Director Jackson said, Commissioner Jackson said.
Okay.
And while I think we covered ex parte communications at the last meeting when we opened the public hearing, we've got some members of the public here tonight who weren't at that meeting, and so I'd like the commission to again go through and disclose any ex parte communications they had on this item with either the applicant or any members of the public, just for the sake of transparency.
Okay, all right. So yes, to reiterate what we did mention at the previous meeting, so I had a discussion with the developer and members of staff regarding the project here at the city.
As did I. I have had a meeting with Mr. Shroud and had a few conversations with a couple members of the city council in regards to this project as well.
As well as I did. Thank you.
I did as well.
All right, and thank you for bringing that up. So anyway, yes, so we will open this, we'll open the public hearing and begin with public comment.
At Flint, please.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm here basically with concerns about process. We, the public, the residents, are not the enemy here. We want well-planned out community that we can be proud of. All we are asking is for due public process. The residents have stood strong. The years on our principles and vision of becoming an independent city and the jewel of the county. That was our vision years ago when we became a city. This hasn't and cannot happen without honest communication and all working together to be successful. Community engagement is only important if you listen. Better community engagement is needed. We have a few concerns. The public hearing is taking place the same night the action is requested. We have only had this amount of materials, which I'm sure you haven't been able to go through all of it, for a short period of time. This is a public hearing tonight. There haven't been any workshops at all regarding this development. Now, I'm not worried about my portion of this. I've lived here all my life. I've worked with David Stroud, whether he liked me or not like me. We've had our ups and downs. And I can say I am proud of his community. I am not proud of the fact that during this time, he is allowed to have, if this is agreed upon tonight, 12-year extension on his project. And then if he builds 1,500 residential units, he gets an excess of 5 more years. That's unheard of. Do all the other developers get the same due process? For the short amount of time, this information, like I say, is too lengthy for the public to get to know and go through, to have questions and then have them come back or have you come back with some answers or some considerations. Resolution 06-63, whereas in anticipation of formal review, or this is stated in the 06-63, which we gave you another copy of tonight. Whereas in anticipation of formal review of these projects, the city authorized 2 community workshops in the fall of 2005 to present the public with information about the projects proposed for the development in the Southport area. It was used to identify issues surrounding these developments. It was used to develop and validate principles that will help guide the development to the Southport area, which ultimately resulted in the Southport decision process. This project was last reviewed in 2008. The same process needs to occur today in 2024 for the 3,004 additional residents proposed for this project. Is my time up already? Okay. You know I like to talk. My other, I'm just going to wait one more minute, please. My other thing is with the problem with 06-63 and where it's referring to on page 7 of the DA amendments, that where it is stated that the 06-63 is mentioned in the 2016 general plan. You're not regarding the resolution singly. You're putting it all in one envelope. Is that the way you're going to treat all resolutions that come before this committee? It's a resolution that stands on its own.
All right,
Thank you.
you.
Elisa Greenfield.
Good evening, Commissioners. I can see I'm coming a little late to this party. I've learned a lot. My name is Elisa Greenfield, and since 2007, I have been very interested in seeing Yarbrough built. To quote Mr. Stroud in a 2007 letter, they say the best things in life take planning and patience, and I guess they do. But if that is the case, Yarbrough could be the best new community in West Sacramento's history. For 17 years now, I have waited and wanted this development to become a reality. Its comprehensive planning offers so much to the citizens of West Sacramento in terms of roads, fire and safety improvements, and family and community-friendly features. A community of well-designed neighborhoods, lakes, parks, trails, a public golf course, and a pedestrian-friendly village center that could be the envy of the region. In addition, and perhaps most exciting to me, Yarbrough offers the possibility of age 55 plus active senior housing in phase 2, housing that does not currently exist in West Sacramento. This location would be so advantageous for senior living as West Sacramento offers via rideshare, top-notch fire and emergency medical services, and close proximity to downtown Sacramento's abundance of medical support services. New active senior housing would also afford senior residents the opportunity to share HOA fees for the many beautiful amenities with 3,000 homes that build out. Cost and benefit sharing at this level is an opportunity that does not exist elsewhere in active senior living. The integration of older people into a community is healthy and good. A pedestrian-friendly village will greatly benefit those who are challenged by driving. People like me could buy age-appropriate housing that would allow us to stay in West Sacramento with our friends and families. Last but not least, we could continue to live in the Delta breeze, a pleasure we all enjoy. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'm hoping Yarbrough's time has come. Please move forward with approvals and let's get this long-awaited development underway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Danny Langford.
So a few of us got together after we got the agenda. We weren't able to digest the entire packet because it's very large, but this is what we came up with, and you do have a copy of it. We, the undersigned residents of West Sacramento, respectfully request that the West Sacramento Planning Commission remember who they represent. You, the Planning Commission, represent the residents of West Sacramento, not the Planning Department nor the developer. We are asking that you do not approve the Yarbrough agreement tonight for the following reasons. This development agreement has been dormant for more than a decade, and so has the engagement with the community. The community needs to be brought into the loop, educated, and given an opportunity for real input prior to rushing this project through. Additional analysis is necessary to ensure measures are in place to mitigate today's impacts rather than those of 16-plus years ago. Current traffic and other impact issues have not been recently reevaluated under CEQA guidelines. The assertion that the impacts of existing community resources such as schools, traffic, and police would be less than significant with 3,004 new homes is ludicrous. To say that today's conditions have not changed since the certification of the 2008 EIR is absurd. The monstrous low-income Connect, I think that's how I say it, luxury living complex has single-handedly escalated and changed the traffic implications on Jefferson Boulevard. The development agreement contains changes that are contrary to the Southport Framework Plan without any public notification or input. The promises and impacts of Resolution 06-63 are not answered by this developer agreement, which is a breach of promise on the part of the West Sacramento City Council. At a minimum, the public needs to be given an opportunity to debate the need for a new supplemental EIR and traffic study. The city should not, and I repeat, not consider the option to buy the golf course without a comprehensive business plan feasibility study involving the community. Again, we respectfully request that this item be postponed until accurate information is distributed to the community through workshops and outreach methods. Now, I was only able to get 15 people to sign because I was busy. I've got a life too outside of all this stuff. We did include our resolution. Yet again, you guys are probably sick of seeing it, but at least we're giving it to you because not everybody is. And because I brought up the apartments, just as a reminder, when all of this went down in 06, the architectural design guide came out for Southport, and those apartments that I mentioned, the monstrous, they're ugly, on Jefferson, have flat roofs. That was never supposed to be part of the design guideline, which again is something else I provided for you in the packet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron Anderson.
First of all, I come, of course, as a private citizen who happens to not be able to speak on this item, even if I wanted to, as far as the commission is concerned. I want to compliment you on your very good attendance. I haven't been used at all. I have to say most of my questions were already answered by the report that was given. I would like to make just a couple of comments. I had some concerns about the golf course, but they have been responded to by, for one, the well. I think that dealt with some of the drought issues I was concerned about. I was also anxious to reinforce the commitment on the living up to the California requirements for low-income housing. This project, I think, is working toward that end. I would not like to see it all in one place. I would prefer duplexes established around the through the single family, but that's not quite what this issue is about tonight. So that's another place to be discussed. But I would like to go on the record of saying that I think there is need for different kinds of housing, including duplexes, throughout the entire single family area. I had a lot of questions about the highway improvements, and it looks to me like that is going along consistently with the project itself. I think the rapidity of the road improvements is a very important element of this. I would encourage you to approve this staff recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Steve and Jim DePrado.
How we doing?
Good evening, Council.
You go ahead and you speak first.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm Jim DePrado, my brother Stephen.
You'll need my minute.
You may not know, but my father came here in 1949, started a business, a small business, and just loved this town. and this town has become our home. It has been our home for my home for 64 years. I've raised 5 kids here, and I live in the Bridgeway area. It's a beautiful area. It's congested, and there's a lot of traffic concerns, and that was my major point for coming tonight. Southport Parkway with all of the big businesses out there, it's very congested. It's difficult to get in and out of. My biggest concern was if there was any kind of a fire or, God forbid, flood of any kind, how would all of us get out through Jefferson? There's only really one way out. So I was really concerned that we talk about a bridge. You know, a bridge would be a part of this plan, either over the Deepwater Channel into Southport area or Bridgeway, or across Linden. But I'm going to go ahead and let my brother speak at this point. Thank you.
He did that because I live on for Linden. Anyway, my biggest concern is basically the same, is we need a bridge more than we need anything. And everybody knows that. And safety is my big concern for the high school. I was a chairman of the bond oversight, and we made a decision to put school where it's at instead of on over by the port. I can't think of the main road right now. But anyway, we made that decision because of safety and traffic. And I don't care how many more lanes you put on Jefferson, it's going to be a problem. And he finally brought it up at the end. River City High School is impacted already. They're trying to get a bond to build another wing. You're going to add this many more homes, this many more people. I would just ask you to delay this process. I know they don't want to hear that, but traffic is the #1 concern, and it is a safety issue. Okay. Again, I was the chairman of the bond oversight to build a high school. I know what's going on. You need to get together with Washington Unified School District. Make that process done first before we okay anything. Or build a bridge. Build a bridge. I'll vote today to get it done. Thank you. Justin, good seeing you.
Thank you both.
Oscar Villegas.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Thank you for your service. I know you get small stipends for what you have to do, but these are long evenings, and so I appreciate your commitment to our community. So my name is Oscar Villegas. I'm a Yolo County supervisor. Prior to being a supervisor, I too was a planning commissioner in the late 90s when we were talking about the general plan as we were thinking about what West Sacramento would eventually become, especially in the southern part. Eventually, in the 2000s, we started talking about the specific plan, getting a little more specific about what Southport would look like, and we adopted the Southport Framework Plan. At that time, we were also talking about more specific projects, and this was one of the Yarbrough project with a development agreement was the mechanism that we were going to use to figure out what we were going to look like, rather than allowing traditional development to take place, which results in the kind of sprawl that we've seen throughout our region. Without naming any specific counties, if you don't have development agreements, it's real easy to incrementally sort of that sort of a proverbial, boiling the frog, so to speak, right? You don't really feel it until all of a sudden the sprawl has occurred. This development agreement really isn't a unique instrument that we have before us, for you tonight, that is to say, to really talk about the kinds of things that we want and the amenities that we want in our community. We're very fortunate to actually have kind of developer that we have tonight proposing what they're proposing. This project is a development agreement that actually has the amenities that the community asked for. There was extensive public input. In fact, that's exactly how this project ended up, with the amenities that it has and a golf course. Typically, developers don't just propose golf courses. They'd much rather just keep building and building more homes. This project has the kind of amenity that's going to draw the kind of quality and the diversity of housing types that we sorely need. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that we really need a diverse housing type, given the crisis that we're in, given our housing situation. So simply put, I urge your support for the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
JP Singh.
Good evening. My name is JP Singh. I'm the resident of this community for 40 years. I want to start with this. I support this project, but that was 16 years ago. I was sitting where you are as a planning commissioner when we approved this project. There was a lot of discussions and meetings held to nail down this project for the approval process. So when this development agreement or this meeting came up, I tried to look at I called Daniel and asked what's going on. He said there's a development agreement proposed by the developer to changes are done. So then a couple of days ago, we got the package in the email, and I tried to go through that. It was 300 pages or something. I couldn't make anything out of that. So I tried to kind of figure out how to go about it. Then I came across a sheet, which I gave you a copy of in my package, which talk about each and every amendment need to be done to the agreement. So I go piece by piece and see what the development agreement says to begin with and what changes are called out. So I put that in the form of that. And there's a lot of questions that I have, but a lot of questions are already answered by the staff and then in the discussion we happened during this, and David Stroud answered that too. But as Pat said, we need to have a community participation or a workshop so we can ask questions in a simple matter. The meeting was postponed for 2 weeks, and there's a attorney who figured it out for 10 plus days what to answer the question that public comment or staff came up with, and that came out day for yesterday too. So there's a lot of information need to be grasped or hatched out before we pass through this agreement that tonight can be approval sought by the staff. So I strongly suggest that we should have a public workshop and where the staff and then the developer and the public come together and ask question and answer that to be, which I lay out in my package that I gave you. I want to be part of the hearing tonight. So again, my closing argument would be just let's not rush this through it and have everybody have a good input. Like during the question, the staff as well as the commissioner yourself stumble on the answers that you require. We don't have a clear answer. So having said that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tom Morrow.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Last time I was here, believe it or not, was in 2008. Guess what we were talking about? It worked. We got approval and started rocking and rolling. And since then, I've retired, moved on, but I did not leave West Sacramento. I love it here. Live in Southport. I think a lot of these points have been touched, but my wife and I found out yesterday that our air conditioner doesn't work. It hasn't probably worked for 3 years because we don't need it. We've got the Delta Breeze. It's just like the coolest place to live ever. We've got it right here. We've got a new levee system that's crazy good. Take my dog for a walk there all the time. It's just, how do we have these nice things? So I guess my question to you guys is, you want to share it? Because I do. I think it's a great place for people to live. I think the golf course is going to be really cool. I think we're going to get the A's too. Thank you.
Thank you.
No additional comments.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, at this point, we'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the commission. Do any of the commissioners have questions for the applicant or any additional questions for staff?
Again, in the to be completely transparent, again, this is a very, very selfish question that I have. And Mr. Rowley, I believe in your presentation, you said that, that Burroughs, was going to be dead-ended at some point. And actually looking at, the map here, it looks like the current thoroughfare that a lot of us in Southport use to access the River Road and the Freeport Bridge. Looks like that is that going away, and is that going to be continued through, but with the expansion of the Southport Parkway there?
As you see, well, let me, again, try to use this. Burroughs is right here, right now, and it goes all the way through to here. What will happen as this area goes through this same process with another tentative map in phase 3. But actually, excuse me, prior to that, because the golf course, you also notice that in the development agreement, there's a requirement that the golf course be at what is technically called a grow-in phase by the time we have pulled 1,200 building permits. So once this area and part of this area is under construction, the golf course will have to have been graded, seeded, irrigation, all of the design, the stand, all those things, and will have to be in a grow-in phase at that time at 1,200 permits. At that point in time, when we start grading the golf course here, this section of Burroughs Road will go away. And so we will be taking Burroughs Road up to that standard of a collector road with, you know, the two travel lanes, the bike lanes, the sidewalk, the landscaping, etc. And we will cul-de-sac it at the end here. This is where Don Johnson lives, and we'll cul-de-sac it there at Mr. Johnson's house. This section of Burroughs Road will then also be rebuilt up to that same standard. So the traffic, if you want to come up South River Road, you're going to come up here, you're going to come to here, you're going to come up, we haven't named this street yet. We will come up to this street or over to Southport Parkway, or you can continue up there. Or if you choose, once you get up to Gregory, you can come across Bevan. That, again, won't happen immediately. That will happen after the right-of-way on the north side of Bevan has been obtained, and we're able to build the full section of Bevan right there, again, to a collector road status.
And one other thing, I appreciate the amount of parks that have been dispersed throughout the communities in this project. And I'm not sure if this is part of this process or not, but is there any plan for, or is there any idea of what type of parks we're talking about? Are we just talking about more grass type parks? Or are we talking about parks that are actually going to have stuff for people to do? For example, and I told my wife would ask this. For example, I mean, with the golf course, it'd be nice to have some actual public tennis courts in the areas or pickleball courts and things of that nature that the community can actually use in some of these parks instead of what we currently have in Bridgeway. We have a lot of parks, but there's a lot of parks where there's nothing there,
right?
Just grass.
Right. Your input into that design process will be welcome. At this point in time, once we get past this tentative map approval, then we will begin the design process of the open spaces in the parks, etc. The Parks Department will have a big involvement in how those are programmed. What you're talking about is programming those areas, whether that's tennis, whether it's baseball, whether it's whatever it happens to be. Pickleball is big now, so maybe it's pickleball. But those types of things get specific. Again, once you get to the point of that final map, that will have to be done. So a lot's triggered with that final map. The financing, the construction, the final design of this whole first phase is dependent upon taking this process to the next level, to the next step, which can't happen unless at some point in time we get this map approved tonight or whenever, if you decide, but hopefully tonight.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant? No? Okay. I have a question for your engineer, please.
Sure.
All right, so when you were explaining the pond system and the main drain, you mentioned that the lakes could be used as irrigation for the golf course, correct? Or was that only going to be irrigated through a well?
So typically, there'll be one lake here that is not connected to the rest of the storm drain system. And that lake basically would be connected to the well. So the well would pump out, dump into the lake. The lake basically acts as a reservoir. And then that is what you pump from that lake to irrigate the whole Gulf.
Okay. Now there are quite a few, I mean, this is less populated than the other side, but there are quite a few homes in this area, and I'm assuming that they are on well water as well, correct? The homes surrounding this development?
The existing ones,
Mhm.
correct, yeah.
Okay. And could you direct me where I could find the impacts to the impacts on existing wells of the existing residents? Is that in the EIR, or where would I be able to find more information?
Well,
on
there
that?
would be a discussion of that in the EIR.
Okay.
I don't know specifically where it is.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, sorry, there was quite a few documents for us to go through, and even having a little bit of a head start, I wasn't able to get through everything. So I did have questions to that, but I think I can probably find that myself. Thank you. Okay. Commission. Is there anything that anyone would care to discuss?
Well, yeah, I just want to acknowledge some of the concerns that were addressed by the public, because those are some of the exact concerns that I have, considering this is literally right at my back door, is where this development is going to be taking place. And my wife and I have had this discussion since we moved into Bridgeway back in 2009. In fact, I'll be completely transparent. One of the reasons why we bought our house was because of this project. The potential of this project being developed back in 2009 was one of the reasons why we chose the neighborhood that we're currently in. So needless to say, the fact that this is now back on the table, for me, it's quite exciting. It's concerning because, as the Librado stated, essentially we're on an island down in Bridgeway, in West Sac in general. We pretty much have one way in and one way out. And the concerns that they expressed are the concerns that I've had since we moved out here, is that what if something were to happen? If there were some sort of a flood or something like that, how the heck would we get out of here with there only really being one way in and one way out? I'm not sure if that's a concern that can be addressed through this project, but again, I acknowledge that concern because that's are concerns that I have had. And now when we come to the actual presentation and the project at hand, with the materials that we're getting, I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Singh, because I too had a lot of concerns about some of the things that were deleted out of the presentation, or the packet that we had, and had questions as to why some of those things were deleted. And those questions were, I think, a lot of those questions that I had were subsequently answered during the staff presentation and in discussions as well. So I have no problem sitting here and saying that, hey, I'm all for moving this project forward, but I want to acknowledge the concerns that the community has, and I would be fine if the decision were to come down and we said, maybe we need to push it back a week or two, or to the next meeting before we approve the project, to give the public the opportunity to be able to have a chance to kind of digest all the material that was given. As like you, I too had a hard time getting through everything. Did not have the opportunity to get through the entire packet the way that I would have liked to have had. I do know as I was going through, that's where a lot of my questions came about. And I think what we're hearing tonight is that people aren't saying, hey, we don't want this project. But what they're saying is that we want this project, but they want to be a little bit more involved in the process, to have a chance to be able to digest. And just the assurance is that, hey, it's essentially the same project that in 2024 that it was in 2008. But I think people want to have that, be able to have that assurance that that is actually the case and not necessarily taking our word for it or taking staff's word for it. So, I mean, if it's appropriate to have a workshop between now and the next meeting, I wouldn't be opposed to that. But at the same time, if that was not the case and so the motion to move it forward were presented, then I would support that as well.
Yeah.
One quick interjection.
Please.
Commissioner Jackson said that it was literally in his backyard. We've confirmed it is more than 500 feet from his property. And one other point is that Commissioner Jackson made a lot of statements about considerations that went into the purchase of his property related to this project. I'd just like to get a statement on the record whether or not you feel you can still be impartial about deciding on this project before you participate further in
Absolutely.
deliberations.
I can absolutely still be impartial about this project. No question about it. Just like I've been impartial with Liberty and everything else that's come before this commission.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, to follow up on that, I don't know if it would be feasible to have a public workshop on this, but I do feel like I might need some additional time to digest some of the materials that have been presented. And I do appreciate the meeting that we had with Mr. Stroud, or that I had with Mr. Stroud, and I know a lot of my questions were answered there. But with some of the secondary documentation that was provided before this meeting, I would agree with you that I feel I could feel comfortable one way, either way. We just move forward this. Any other discussion from the commission?
So I didn't hear the staff because I was delayed on a flight, but I believe the same thing that Preston said. Everyone's pretty much in agreement. They just want to see it done right and with everything addressed by workshop or public input. Ms. Flint, communication, this was, a long time ago, 2008 when it was last reviewed. Ms. Greenfield about the active senior housing. I'm sure it's probably in there, but I'm sure she wants that. Danny Langford, it's been dormant for a decade. More community input, conditions that have been changed, as JP had said. Mr. Anderson, need for different housing, he was all for it. DePrado's traffic is my biggest concern as well. One way in, one way out. I know the Park Fire is way different than one way in, one way out here, but my kids lost their house in that. And you need to be able to get out if there's some sort of something happening where you are. High school, Oscar addressed that Yarbrough, the mechanisms of what it would look like are great, but a bridge is important for that traffic, and that's something I think too. Who else mentioned that? The Prados, that the bridge should be something that we're really concerned with and should be in place, I think, before we put a lot more houses out there. I think that's probably about it, other than everybody's, it seems like most are on board. I don't know that I could go forward without more public, without the public to have more input, even if it's just 2 weeks from now. That's it.
So I appreciate all the questions, comments, and feedback from my colleagues. And I don't disagree, by the way, and my only question would be, what are those expectations of the workshop or the town hall? I think we need to qualify what it is we're explicitly trying to ensure that our community members are clear of and about with this project. It's been my experience since I've sat here on the dais that traffic issues have been addressed, and how the city staff have gone about assuring our community members how that's going to be managed in the overall plan. So is there something that we as a commission body believe, is there any key areas in which we can call out today that we would be wanting out of this said workshop?
So my personal opinion on this is that from what I can tell and what's been presented to me so far, I think everything's above board. But considering the size of this project and the fact that it's the third of, or maybe it's the first of the big three down there, I feel like having an additional 2 weeks to review everything here would, because I have some questions and I need more information specifically about the golf course. And what, and kind of the cost to the city of this whole project. And perhaps because this is the first one that's really gotten to us at this point since I've been on the commission. But I do have major concerns about the financial future of the city as it continues to expand outward. I know Mr. Villegas did mention that the DA is a good way of preventing sprawl, but having come from previously living in a very dense urban area, all of these projects to me look like sprawl, and I really need to make sure that this is a good financial decision for the city in the future. And so yes, I would like to see, I need to review more of the information in the PFFP. Like I said, that wasn't something that stood out to me when I was reviewing the DA and amendments. And then I'd also like to dive into the original EIR, although I do trust the legal opinion that was provided to us yesterday or the day before. It's just not an area of expertise, and I need to be more.
So Chair, those are items that you're interested in reviewing and requesting the additional time for. Is the workshop still something that you would be?
I think that a workshop would be a big lift for city staff and also the applicant. But considering that, yes, we are here not only to help the city, but also to represent the community, I think it's important that we can make this decision confidently. So I would like, that's my take on this.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I feel like the city and the developer have done good work, that this is ready to move forward, and I'm ready to vote yes, and I think it's ready to move forward. I don't think we need to have any more time. I don't think it would be that productive. I think we should just go ahead and move forward.
Is there any additional discussion that anyone would like to make or have? No? Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Squires, if you would like to make the motion to accept the city staff recommendation. You'll just have to.
Are we going to do it in two motions?
Chair Delgado, I would recommend we do a roll call vote for this, please.
Yes. So Commissioner Squires, would you, give you a moment.
You can motion to do everything all in one action. You don't have to take it separately.
I make a motion that we approve the Phase 1 vesting tentative subdivision map number 5224 and the development agreement amendments that we were presented with.
Okay. Commissioner,
hold on just a second. So staff's recommendation was also various items related to CEQA. So if you want to approve a whole package, I would recommend you move staff's recommended action just to capture everything.
Slide up if that would help. Identify
Let's go back.
I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh, we had a slide at the end of my presentation that had all of the actions if you wanted to read through them.
Okay, where is that slide?
We're pulling it up right now.
While we're looking for that, one of the recommendations is to find that no supplemental environmental analysis is needed beyond what was done on the project EIR previously. The third recommendation was to find that the vesting tentative map and amendments to the development agreement relative to the Yarbrough master plan are consistent with CEQA based on the environmental impact report adopted on June 18th, 2008. Fourth recommendation was to adopt resolution 24-2 PC approving the vesting tentative subdivision map number 5224. Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Your motion will be to do each one of these.
Yeah, the second bullet, start with the second bullet.
Okay. I motion that we, that no environmental review is required. Subsequent environmental review is required prior to approval of the proposed vesting tentative subdivision map and proposed amendments to the Yarbrough Development Agreement. I make a motion that the vesting tentative subdivision map number 5224 and amendments to the development agreement relative to the Yarbrough Master Plan be based on the Environmental Impact Report, EIR, be adopted. Let's see. I'm having confusion.
You're doing good.
It's all so long and complicated. I thought we were just agreeing to the vested tentative map, subdivision map, and
Boiling it down
the
to the
amendments.
essentials here is, for your consideration tonight, we have a vesting tentative map for your approval, and we have a resolution that would adopt that map.
Right.
We've also brought forward for your consideration the development agreement for the project. Planning Commission doesn't approve development agreements. That is an action undertaken by the City Council. So what we're looking for from the Commission is a recommendation to approve the development agreement amendment. And that is just an act, that's the final bullet there.
Okay.
In addition to all of that, we have to verify that the environmental review done on the project thus far is sufficient to cover these actions. That's what you're looking at with the first two, or the second and the third bullet. So again, if you're on board with the idea of approving the vesting tentative map and recommending approval of the development agreement, and
Yes.
you're comfortable that the existing environmental analysis is sufficient
Yes.
for the reasons outlined in the staff report, I would recommend that you just move to approve staff's recommended action.
Okay, I move to approve staff's recommended action.
We'll be taking a roll call vote for this.
We need a second
need a
first.
second.
Oh, sorry.
I'll second that motion.
All right, please.
Commissioner Squires,
Aye.
Commissioner Linker,
No.
Commissioner Olivares,
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson,
No, just because I still think we need the public workshop.
Commissioner Wong,
Aye.
Chair Delgado.
No. Really, that alternate tonight.
That was 3-3, so that motion failed. So we'll need another motion.
Okay. Am I allowed to make a motion? Okay. Just never seen it happen before. All right. Sorry. I would like to make a motion. Sorry, how do I recommend that we take this up at the next meeting in 2 weeks?
You move to continue this item to the next meeting.
All right, thank you. I'd like to make the motion that we continue this item at the next meeting on August, what would be the date of that?
15.
August 15th. All right, and I'm just making the motion that we continue it in 2 weeks, so that the commission has additional time to review the provided documents already.
And just for clarification, that is for action in 2 weeks, not for a workshop, correct?
Correct, for action in 2 weeks.
Well, if we're just postponing the action for 2 weeks without any kind of a public workshop, I don't see other than just first to give us the time to go through the work of the paperwork. I don't see how, I just don't see why, if that's the case, then why wouldn't we just go ahead and approve everything tonight? Or make the vote to approve everything tonight?
Yeah, and I think that that's the point that I was trying to make early on is, how do we want to qualify whatever the need or the ask is of the commission body? What we're saying is that we want to go ahead and meet our community members where there are and seeking additional information on the project. My recommendation would be is if we lean into a workshop, we need to be explicitly clear on what it is our community members are wanting to know so that we don't continue to delay this project further, because to a lot of points that have already been made on the dais is I think some of us feel resolved in the amount of work that has already been achieved by city staff, as well as the questions that have continuously come before us on the dais regarding this project. So I respect and understand that more time may be needed in order for us to, some of us to make our way through the amount of information that's been provided, but then we're also hearing that a workshop or a town hall may be needed to satisfy some of those lingering, ongoing thoughts that the community has. So I believe with our attorney's help, we might be able to come up with a recommendation on how we can achieve both.
So procedurally, right now, we've got a motion from Chair Delgado. If there's no second for that, that motion would fail. You can make an alternative motion to recommend a workshop. Another option for your consideration would be to have a community workshop outside of this context. So not at a meeting of the commission, but where there could be presentations by staff, by the applicant, to have a more back and forth dialogue with the community. Since in this context, we're going to be limited to how long comments could be anyway. And we've had other issues in the city where that approach has been taken. If you want to have a workshop here, we can come back in 2 weeks and we could do a workshop here. We could do that in a month. I don't know what the calendar looks like for the commission. There are options for what a workshop would look like.
If I may, through the chair, another suggestion could be a workshop at the city council level. They could hold a workshop if they choose to do so.
I'm sorry, I had one more question. Considering this is, for most of us, our first experience kind of being at an impasse this late in a planning commission meeting, have we, is the recommendations that you're providing because we've been here before and so you're helping us to kind of get to that end decision? Because I think that would help us kind of usher along. So maybe take up the roll call on Chair Delgado's motion and then move into the recommended.
Well, we would still need a second on his motion.
Got it, okay.
And again, for clarification, his motion is to continue this item for 2 weeks.
Okay.
For a decision in 2 weeks.
Understood.
Okay, that motion fails.
Okay, I will gladly take the initiative to make the motion to allow for us to push this out. I'm going to ask that I get some guidance in how I frame this to ensure that we meet the needs of all of the asks this evening. So pushing this out to allow for a collaborative and guided city staff and community member discussion in hopes of addressing all questions that not only come before us, but that are also in the materials. That'll allow some commissioners here to have additional time to review said documentation and hopefully alleviate some of those questions and concerns that have been presented before us today. Do I need help?
I'm just looking at a calendar and thinking about logistics. Even though our next meeting is in 2 weeks from tonight, all the materials would need to be put together, in less than a week. So I don't know that there would be, adequate time in that time frame to pour over anything, any more than we already perhaps have for you. If there was still some desire for some type of additional public engagement, a subsequent planning commission meeting for a hearing, may be best in 2 weeks, which is really, again, only about 4 or 5 working days to pull everything together. Not certain that we'll be able to advance the dialogue in that amount of time.
And to to prepare the documentation, we're referring to what city staff would be needing to put together to facilitate.
Yeah, it is your packet. We would certainly be able to, utilize a lot of the material that's already here tonight, but a lot of new analysis, there won't be a lot of time for that. That's all I just want to make sure that's clear. If you were to go to our next meeting in 2 weeks on the 5th.
Yeah, so my point and the reason that I wanted to continue this for 2 weeks was that I'm confident that with some additional time to review some of the documents that I wasn't aware were out in public, I would be able to make a confident decision that this is it is what it is. So with the, that was my point. I'm confident that I can make the decision adequately with some additional time to review it. I think that, anything, a public workshop or anything like that would set this project back quite some time. So, I mean, we have many pages of public comment and things that we can, I think that the commission can address ourselves, since some of these came in relatively recently today. And that given the time of 2 weeks to review this, the commissioners ourselves would be able to respond to these questions and move forward one way or another, knowing that we can address all of the concerns listed here. So that's why I suggested a continuation of 2 weeks.
Is there something or a reason we can't continue it for 4 weeks if you don't think, I don't know, because it's already been years.
Sorry, was that a question for me or for Mr. Tilley?
You can continue it to the first September meeting.
And that would be September 5th, and I would expect that our missing commissioner would be available that night as well, so we would have, full complement, assuming nobody else has any conflict on for September 5th. That is the week of Labor Day, but otherwise that is September 5th is the first.
Okay. Then I will make a motion to continue this item to our September 5th meeting for decision. Do we have a second?
If that meeting is more of a workshop where we can get answers, not just us reading over all the materials or additional material.
I think we can get answers anytime from the city, from the staff, from, the resources that are available. I don't necessarily think we need a workshop for the commission, personally.
Just to be clear, between now and then, everybody on the commission and in the public is allowed to contact staff with questions, seeking clarification on any aspect of this project.
That's right, and we've been able to do that all along. Contact the staff and so forth. That's why I don't see any reason to continue this to a later date.
All right, please remain respectful of everyone in attendance this evening. Thank you. All right, so my second motion also fails. Commissioner Jackson?
I'm ruminating.
Okay.
I think what Chris Oliver said earlier is kind of, I think that's kind of where we're stuck at right now, is that if we're not taking action on this item tonight, what then are we expecting to have take place between now and either the meeting on the 15th, meeting on the 1st, that is somehow going to impact a decision that will be made on one of those dates versus tonight. So if we're just continuing, just this for the sake of continuing, so that we can peruse through the material and then still have the opportunity to be able to ask staff questions and things like that. If that's the reason why we're saying we want to push it out, I mean, it's been 17 years at this point. I don't think, and from everything that I've seen, and if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, it doesn't seem like the project has changed substantially, if at all, from the original that was presented and approved in 2008. Granted, it's been a few years. Environmental impact things have taken place. Some of those things have changed, but that doesn't apply because it was already approved. But also, we've also had other improvements that have taken place down in the Southward area. The levees have been improved tremendously since this project was approved. So we're just saying, well, we just want to delay taking action on this item so that we can just kind of go through the material more, and then come back and vote on it. Then I think we need to do that to the next available opportunity, not necessarily pushing it out a month. Because even though I'm not sure when this material was made available to the public, I know required, 5 days for?
Yeah, all the Yarbrough materials, the development agreement, the master plan itself, the EIR, those have been on our website and have been on our website for years. The packet of materials, including the staff report, came out last Friday for our typical schedule.
Okay, yeah, and so, even with that, we've known that this has been coming before us for the last month, because our previous meeting had gotten, we pushed it out to this meeting. Now, granted, just like the public, we also we had the same amount of time to go through the material the last 7 or 8 days when we were emailed the materials as well. They got it at the same time. So if we're just saying, well, we just want to kind of chance to digest things a little bit more before we take action on it, then if that's the case, then we need to do that at the next available meeting, in my opinion, not necessarily continue to push the rock down the road, considering that, the amount of time that's already gone into this project.
Yeah, that was the purpose of my first motion, was that I'm aware that this information has been available. But again, having a full-time job, having a life, I'm not going to spend every waking moment looking at, the city website. So with the knowledge that the EIR was not included in the package, but is located somewhere that I can access it. And same thing with the draft PFFP. Yes, I do want to make an informed decision, which means that I want to take some additional time to digest the information, make sure that, everything provided to us can address the public comments that we received earlier this week and today, and then come back with the confidence to say, yes, this is a good project for the city and we can move forward with it. So yes, I'm not blaming the applicant or city staff for not providing us with enough information. I think they've done a fantastic job. It's just that to make an informed decision for myself, yes, I would like to push that back 2 weeks, come back and make, an informed, good decision for the city.
Okay, so my question then is, then in that 2 week period, what avenues are in place for the concerns that the community may have had to get those concerns addressed? How are we proposing? How are we going to get those? We're saying that staff is available to answer those concerns, or
Staff is
trying to be
certainly
an avenue for them to be
staff is
addressed
certainly available, and we have been all jotting down notes tonight, and we would certainly endeavor to address those to the extent possible in your next staff report, noting that will still be due only in a few working days from now, if you were decided to go to August 15th. tonight has, in essence, functioned like a workshop in terms of getting feedback and public input on the project. And so, in some ways, a workshop has largely been conducted, this evening. So the staff is prepared to effectuate, your decision. We just want to make sure that the motion, if there is a motion to continue, that it go to a date certain. So our next 2 meetings would be August 15th or September 5th.
Okay, third time's a charm. I will make the motion that we continue this item at our August 15th meeting for decision.
I just have one other question. Sorry. If we decide on the 15th, who sets up, like, if we wanted to set up a discussion with other citizens and residents, who would set that up, and how would that look like? If we wanted to do just a discussion, not a meeting.
Presumably that would need to happen like early next week. I don't know that something like that could be pulled together in a matter of a few days.
The commissioner can always be present for the public to engage, right? We would advise to have a staff present so that if there's any technical questions that we might be able to help. But that is almost outside of it can be outside of sort of the staff report deadlines that David's speaking of. And if it generates things that might change staff's recommendation, it would likely not change staff's recommendation because we've done the work and we've done the research and we've done all of the background information to set forth to you today. So if it's a matter of simply listening to certain community members that want to reach out to you, that's always up to you. We would just recommend that a staff member be
Okay. And I guess my third motion also failed, so good.
So I was getting ready to second your motion, Chair, with the understanding that a number of commissioners here on the dais have expressed consideration and wanting to hear more from community members. I think we've attempted to do our due diligence to ensure a fair and equitable process and to ensure that our community members feel heard. We do have a process in place, as does City, to ensure that these meetings are teed up with adequate information and all materials necessary for us to make an informed decision. I respect the fact that there will be instances where we need more time to review said materials. However, at this time, we do need to move this forward. We do need to let you get home to your families. And so for that reason, I'd say that I will second Chair's motion to move.
I have to make it again.
Oh, well, go for it. I'm here for you this time, so we can move this along.
Okay. So I do make the motion that we continue this item in 2 weeks on August 15th, at which point we make a decision.
And I will just add to my second of that motion that staff have done an incredible job of ensuring that all of the public comments that come through, even from Mr. Stroud as a developer, get to us commissioners in a timely fashion. And I think my information, most of our information is made available at our request. I will make myself available for that request. And I thank all of you for being here. I know that this is a emotionally charged topic for discussion, but I am confident that everybody is doing their respective part to ensure that we make the best decision for the city as a whole. Thank you.
Okay. So we've made the motion. We have a second. And then can we take the roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Squires,
No.
Commissioner Linker,
Yes, and I'm going to meet with staff. And then
Commissioner Olivares,
Aye. Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wong,
No.
Chair Delgado.
Aye. That's it.
That's 4-2. This item's continued to 2 weeks from.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. So with that being said, we'll move on to our regular agenda, which we have none. General Administration Function Part 2, Commissioner Communications. Do we have any additional words from the commissioners before we depart?
None, Chair.
All right. Commissioner Jackson.
I just like
Sorry,
to say,
we've not adjourned yet, so if you're leaving, please, please remain silent until we've adjourned. Thank you.
I would like to thank staff for the work that has been done in preparation of this material, and for Mr. Stroud and his availability to meet with us throughout this process. And I would encourage anyone from the community who still has concerns that they be directed to staff so that we can get those addressed in a timely fashion, and so we can take appropriate action at the next meeting.
Yes. And thank you again for all the work of city staff and the applicant. I don't take a continuation like this lightly. It's not something that I intend to do, but knowing that there are documents that I had not had time to review, I do want to make sure that I do my due diligence before making any decisions on behalf of the city. So thank you for your understanding, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks. And with that, we will adjourn.